the world would be a better place if we value each other and our environment and our ecosystems as much as we value ourselves and our advancement.
Welcome to Get Lost Education, where we invite changemakers, green leaders, artists and activists who have created their own paths and affected positive change in their communities and our world. In my own journey, it was only by getting lost so many times that I was able to discover myself, to learn about the world around me, and to learn about my own passions and what impact I wanted to have on this world. And that's why I'm here at Green School Bali, a place where we're rethinking education, we're reimagining what a school is and can be, and empowering the next generation of changemakers. And today we're sitting down with someone who has a passion for forest conservation. Farwiza is a passionate forest conservationist working with local communities to protect, conserve and restore the Leuser Ecosystem in Sumatra, Indonesia. She co-founded and currently serves as the chairperson of Forest, Nature and Environment Aceh Foundation. It's called the Yayasan Haka. It's a grassroots organisation working to push for better protection of the Leuser ecosystems through policy and advocacy, through community empowerment, as well as habitat protection. Welcome to Get Lost Education, Ibu Wiza. Very special time of year right now, and Wiza's here as our grade 12 graduation guest speaker, and I've been lucky to pull her aside for a little chat. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I think it's such an honor to be invited to Green School as graduation speaker to join you here today.
Yeah. So, we're not going to get very far without me mentioning your face, Ibu, Wiza. And there's actually a motorbike here, so Wiza, you look awesome. You're such a badass woman that you've just fought off a motorbike, I believe, and a couple of days ago, and had a little bit of trouble here in Bali. But now it's extra double gratitude, isn't it, that you've agreed to come on, looking so battle ready.
I mean, if maybe about a decade or 2 decades ago, I wouldn't make an appearance. Having been bruised and completely beaten up, but now I am at the point in my life where I could think that everything is temporary. Our good looks is temporary, our injury is temporary. So today you get to record me looking like this, and this would be...
We're very lucky. Yeah.
This would be in archive forever.
That's a good way of thinking of it. We're capturing something. You'll never look like this again, I think.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hopefully not in the near future.
So I know everyone, I'm really excited to meet you and get to know you, but I'm going to start right at the start and, tell us about, where you were born, where you grew up, what your upbringing was like.
I was born in Banda Aceh, this small little town in the northern tip of Sumatra, way back in the 80s.
Way back in the 80s.
Way back in the 80s.
That makes me feel old.
My parents are teaching in university. They're both university lecturer. So my upbringing is almost always on campus. So we live on campus ground. I always sort of spend my childhood cycling between one faculty to another, trying to find my mom or dad in their day-to-day life. And it's sort of, I spend a lot of time in nature. I spend a lot of time climbing trees and swimming in the river. That's like our pastime. We used to have this really old, that curve TV where you need to push the button to change the channel. And
you are making me feel really old now. Way back in the 80s, yeah. I remember it actually.
Way back in the 80s,
yeah. Someone told me about the 80s once, yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time we're not allowed to watch TV.
Yeah.
But my parents would allow me to watch nature documentaries once a week on Sunday. And those are one of the things that I most look forward to. That's like one of my reasons to get up, so I can have that, half an hour.
So your
in front of
childhood was
TV.
surrounded by schools and your parents were educators. What was your schooling like then? Tell me a little bit about what school was like for you.
School was terrible.
It was
I was
terrible.
a terrible kid. I was.
You were a terrible kid and the schools were fun places to be?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
I dreaded school. I dreaded having to get up every morning to go to school because I know the school is sort of like where I got punished. The school is the place where I would be told off thanks to lack of discipline or
So you weren't a good student? You weren't polite and respectful? You were a little bit naughty?
no way. I'm none of that. School was essentially a place where I earned my insecurity at that time
Wow.
to learn that I was not good enough.
We
But
could jump down the rabbit hole on that, but we won't.
sure,
Yeah, no, we won't. Keep going.
sure.
Yeah. School, oh wow, you've phrased that and you've actually, I'm a bit taken back. School is the place where you learned your insecurity. That's not what school should be.
Exactly. I mean, looking back, now we could see in a bit better perspective,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And to see what happened in school and to see how that interaction between students and teacher was like, that interaction between you and your peers was like, it's a great deal of lesson learned. And in many ways, perhaps it has made me stronger. But I do remember that my sister and I went to the same school, but we have very different, say, trajectory.
Yeah.
My sister was one of those good kids, and she always earned the first grade.
Is she older than you?
She's younger,
Younger than you.
and she always excelled. So my mom would come to school for two reasons: either I did so bad, or my sister did so well.
Well, hi to your sister out there. Is she watching? If
Maybe
you could
she'll
change something about your school when you were growing up, what would be one thing that you could change?
If there's one thing that I would change, it would be less punishment.
Less punishment.
Discipline should be instilled in the case of value. I think instead of making it based on fear, that if you don't cut your nails to a certain length, then you get your teacher to smack your hands with a wooden rat or a rattan.
Yeah. It's it's worlds away, aren't we? I know that you've been to green school before a couple of times, but the school we've got here is quite a world away from wrapping students' hands and punishment. Tell me, when you were growing up, did you have some favourite people? Who were your influences? Who motivated you? I know you talked briefly about that, the pleasure of being able to watch some TV and nature documentaries. Were there other people in your life when you were young that helped you find a connection with nature that we're going to talk about today?
Let's just say I was quite lucky to be growing up in the family that I am. My father and mother are incredibly supportive of our ideas and our dreams. So when I was growing up and I loved playing outside, sometimes my mom would try to discipline me and say, like, spend your time studying, do your homework. But my dad would always tell me, it's okay, go take your bike, go play outside, it's fine, as long as you get your responsibilities completed, done. And out of this, spending time outside, just being curious little kid, I begin to grow the curiosity towards nature and eventually love towards nature. I remember one time as a kid, I spent a lot of time climbing trees. And I was quite curious about trees from other places around the world, other ecosystems that is not, tropical rainforest. I had this vision or this dream that one day I would try to create a botanical garden in front of my house, thinking that I could bring all different species all around the world into a single landscape. Very naive children's dream, but it's not totally unviable.
We're going to get to it eventually because you're a pretty special person for us in Indonesia as someone that's not just an activist but a conservationist. And, it's no random mistake that we've asked you to be here multiple times, but also for this special event for us for grade 12s. Can you explain to people watching what it is you're up to right now?
Well, with Haka, we are doing a whole lot of work. With our main mission is to conserve, protect, and restore the Leuser ecosystem, and that encompasses many things. But
And
for
is
me,
it an organisation or initiative? What are we talking about?
yeah, Yayasan
Haka,
Haka
Yayasan
is
Haka.
an organization that we started about 7-8 years ago.
What does Haka mean?
It is an interesting history. Back then, when we started the organization, we were working for a government institution, a provincial government, whose job is to protect, conserve, and restore the Leuser ecosystem. Because of the political circumstances at that time, from one day to the next, the governor decided to dissolve the organization that we work for. So suddenly we find ourselves without job, without office, without any institution that hold us together. So me and my colleague, we kind of like sit together in coffee shop in Aceh, as you do, and start to think about what are we going to do next, given the circumstances. So we were like, okay, let's start an NGO, let's start a yayasan, so we could continue on with our work with a whole new vehicle.
So Yayasan is a non-profit organisation.
It's a foundation,
Indonesia.
yes.
Foundation, yeah.
And then we go back to a drawing board, thinking about what would be our mission, what would be our vision, what would be the name of the organization. And the name Haka popped up because it was a New Zealand war dance.
Oh, I wondered if we're aiming towards the Kiwi audience with the Haka.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. And we thought we want an organization that could take on the fight that other organization might not have the guts to do so. We would be the one taking the risk. We would be the one that is, pushing things a little bit harder. We would do the advocacy work. We would do, we would engage in lawsuits. We would engage in things that others might not think that it would be a good thing to engage in.
Give us a time frame. When did Yayasan Haka start?
That was way back in 2012.
2012. Okay. And so, were there immediate conservation actions that that organisation began with?
Yes. So at that time, when this whole government agency collapsed, it was at the time when we were in the middle of a lawsuit. We were suing a palm oil company who were burning forest in the Leuser ecosystem.
So suing a palm oil company in Indonesia is not an easy thing to do?
Well, it's both not an easy thing and an easy thing to do in an extent. It's not so hard to submit a lawsuit, but it's actually really hard to win one.
Okay, all right. I love it. A good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you go with it then?
Well, I mean, the thing is, one thing that is so important to stress that it's not just us.
Yeah.
It's us and so many other organizations, government included. So the government of Indonesia at that time, this is way back in 2012, they were really supportive of this lawsuit because the Indonesian government also wanted to see their moratorium on new permits on pit swamp and...
What's the issue with palm oil? Let's just fill people in backstory a little bit. Why are we fighting against palm oil?
Why are we fighting against palm oil? The thing is, it's not... Okay, I have to be, super clear on this.
Yeah.
It is not the crop per se. It's not the palm trees.
No.
The problem with palm oil in Indonesia is the practice on how this crop have become so profitable that it expand beyond the area where they should be.
You were working with an organisation that was shut down, and so typical with your badass woman attitude, you decided to start up another company, a yayasan that was based on a New Zealand war cry called the Haka, and we're suing organisations for palm oil practice. Okay, so we're there. Is that what was next?
What was next was a concerted campaign against this palm oil company to remind the court that everyone is watching. And for once, for the first time ever in Indonesia, a civil lawsuit against palm oil company that was burning forests was won.
Ray.
Sort of, it was quite a surprise because it's like when we won, it never happened before, and everyone took it as a disbelief. Like,
Yeah.
did we really
Yeah,
won? Did
yeah.
the court really handed down the sentence?
And was there change because of you winning? What have you seen change?
First thing first, and I think it's actually more than the sentence in itself. It's the attitude of the local community. It's the attitude of the other palm oil companies. It's the attitude of the government officials towards this kind of case. When we begin the lawsuit, local community in the area was practically doubting us. They're practically telling us, "Are you crazy? You suing a palm oil company? You could never win. They run everything." But when we win, they were like, "We could win. It's
Make change.
it's impossible, but it happened.
But it happened.
Now we could do more."
So that's a pretty big picture. What's a day in the life of Weezer like? Apart, or take away your average motorcycle accident. What's a day in the life of your normal work work life?
When I was studying my undergrad, I was a marine biologist.
You're a really good undergrad student, you were telling me before.
No, I was a terrible one. But when I was doing my undergrad, in process to become marine biologist, I imagined a day in my life would be a whole lot of diving, a whole lot of being underwater, a whole lot of being on a boat, sailing places. But in reality, when I actually work in conservation, a whole lot of my time is spent in front of a computer.
Right.
Writing reports, writing grant application, looking at
All the fun stuff.
all the totally fun stuff, and creating strategies and making.
You look at a whole heap of Jane Goodall videos and want to be like her, and then realise that you're stuck in an office most of the time.
Yeah, a bit like that.
Surely there's a lot of community work that you do as well.
Sometimes I get lucky.
You get lucky?
Sometimes I get to go into the field and actually meet the people we are serving. The way I see the conservation work, initially as an ecologist, as a marine biologist, it is for the animals, it is for the wildlife. But over the years, I learned that local community are some of the most important stakeholders in conservation. They are often accused as the perpetrators, as the villain, but in reality, they are the people on the front line. So our work with local community, perhaps the most exciting part for me. Quite recently, we launched a group of women rangers.
Okay.
In the Leuser Ecosystem. And this is exciting because it addressed two things.
So women rangers.
Women rangers. So first, it addressed patriarchy.
Yes. Good thing to address. Patriarchy. Good. Tick that one off the list. What else did the women rangers address?
It is exciting for me, practically, because when we first heard of the idea, Women Rangers, it was inspired by this group in South Africa, Black Mambas.
Okay.
When I was there and I met them, and I'm like, wow, your work are incredible. As women, you could take on the challenge to prevent wildlife poaching. And I sort of wonder and ruminate if we could take the same concept to Aceh.
Yeah.
A lot of people might know that Aceh is quite conservative, although a whole lot of female heroes come from the area.
Yeah.
But the current situation is not necessarily what we would say the best for progressive women. So when we think of the concept of women rangers, we could not, sort of implement of how, we could not imagine how it would look like on the ground.
Yeah.
In the past few years, we have been engaging communities on a number of trainings. Paralegal trainings or environmental impact assessment trainings. The idea is to give the local community tools and knowledge to know what to do if there is environmental destruction that happen in the landscape
Yep.
where they live, because they are the first to witness.
Yep.
And one of this group is a group of women in the village of Damaran Baru in Banda Maria.
Uh-huh.
When we speak to them after the trainings, they were telling us, we saw people encroaching into the forest. So we saw people engaging in illegal logging in the forest, but there's nothing we can do. When we warned them, they were practically challenging us. They were practically telling us, who are you? And what are your rights to tell us what to do? So then we work with this group of women to create a village forest
Okay.
around the area
Yeah.
where they are, and apply for a village forest concession from Ministry of Forestry.
Yeah.
Once that's set up, this group of women say we want to do more. And that gave us the idea, why don't we create a group of women rangers from this?
Yeah. Awesome.
And it will be a pilot. And the interesting fact is, when we think of rangers, we often think about tough, muscular men with arms.
Guns, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Not arms.
Armed men, but
Yeah.
guns.
Yeah.
But this group of women rangers is practically mothers and grandmothers.
Yeah. Awesome.
And their weapons.
No need for guns then.
And their weapons is their very, let's say, active mouth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
anytime anyone engaged in this illegal forestry activity, then they would just get mad at them.
Get mad at them. Look out for an angry women ranger. How else? What else can we do to activate and provide opportunities for more female activists? You know, you just talked about, so the women rangers, that initiative is proving a point that you can access the strength and power of Indonesian women. Is there other ways that even a school or other organisations should be trying to provide opportunities for more female activists?
Absolutely. I think the case with a whole lot of women that go into this work is the supportive ecosystem that exists around them. So a whole lot of these women rangers have a very supportive husband.
Yeah.
Because in reality, we put ourselves in context and in perspective of where we are. You can't possibly expect someone to be fighting on all fronts of their life.
Yeah. No, you can't. What's next for you then? You know, I've got a question here that says, you know, why do you think it's important to conserve and regenerate our local ecosystems? But we could talk for hours and hours about that. I mean, I think we're past that. What are you doing next? What's the next big thing that you're onto? Because I can't imagine you standing still with either the haka or the women rangers. What's your big dream for change next for you?
I think, to come back to the reason why I started doing what I'm doing, in the end for me, the big dream is to make conservation mainstream.
Awesome. Making conservation mainstream. Awesome. Yeah, keep going. Tell me more.
We tend to think of the work of conservation or environmentalism as the work of others. But in reality, if there is one thing that sustains all of us, that support all of us, is this planet, this earth. And it is the healthy environment where we live in. It is important for every aspect of our life, whether we see it or not.
So how do we do that? How do we activate more communities and everyone in a community to be part of that change?
Change of paradigm.
Change the paradigm. Now that sounds pretty easy to do. You like doing easy things, don't you?
Absolutely, and I'm sure this is something that all of you at Green School take as a personal mission.
Yeah.
To do changing the paradigm, changing the system, and planting that love for nature in the heart of everybody. So you become essentially the decision that we make in our life, even if we try to be rational about it, a whole lot of decision comes from emotions.
Yeah.
And love is one of those important emotions that we need to encourage and grow.
We often talk of people and nature as two distinct separate things. Even in our conversation this morning, we have spoken about reconnecting, or that people have an impact on nature and nature has an impact on people. But aren't we the same? Aren't we actually part of nature, and that paradigm shift would need to come from an awareness and a reconnection with nature too?
Yeah, here's the interesting thing.
Oh,
When I was studying...
are we only getting to the interesting thing now? All right,
Yeah,
okay.
the thing is, when I was studying ecology, when I was studying biology, the framework of thinking was that human and nature are separate.
Exactly.
In a sense that if you want to create a conservation area, protected area, then humans need to be excluded from that landscape, because the way humans interact with nature would be destructive.
Yeah.
And because of that mindset, almost all of the conservation areas that has been created, up until recently, is very much without the thinking of how would the human population interact with that landscape. You get the local community to feel like it is their interest to protect an area, and it would not be within their realm of awareness if they always see conservation or development as something that would take away their right and their ability to make a living out of an area. That incentive would never be there.
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about easy issues here. Hey, you want a drink?
Oh, sure.
Cheers. Can you lift it? Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. There's a whole curriculum in the coconut, I think.
The coconut philosophy.
It tastes nice too. Yeah, the coconut philosophy. There'll be people here, hopefully there's people watching and listening and going, wow, you're awesome. How do people get into what you're doing? How do people become activists and conservationists and change makers? What's your advice? What's your advice?
What's my advice? My advice would be just start.
Do it.
Just do it. I mean, when I wanted to get into conservation, it was quite something that's difficult to access. Any conservation job that was available at that time when I just graduated school require 5-10 years experience or a master's degree.
Yeah.
That would forbid anyone that could not have those 5-10 years experience to start with, or a master's degree, from entering this space.
And that master's degree is probably not free here either.
Exactly. So it was, I thought at that time it was quite an exclusive club. But I learned over the years that conservation is not it's not necessarily a sector for those who graduated from biology or ecology. It is something that everyone could get involved in.
Yeah.
Conservation requires everyone with every skills and lifestyle, and essentially anyone from lawyers or anyone in marketing background, in filming, could get into conservation, and it has to come from a place of love.
Place of love. We're back to a place of love.
Oh, it's always in the place of love.
Yeah.
If you love nature and you feel like, right, my skill set is filming. I could invite more people to love nature by showing them the beauty of it. I could bring awareness by showing them the destruction of it. I could feature more people working in conservation space and maybe inspire more people to get into this space. And really, we all have something that we could share, that we could give.
So it's not just, you dodged the question really well. You could get into politics after this. So it's not really about creating more and more and more activist frontline people, it's actually opening up the possibility and the opportunity for everyone to participate in conservation and regeneration.
Precisely. I think, come on, each of us
Come
breathe
on.
the air.
Yeah.
Each of us drink the water. Some of us have the privilege of drinking coconut.
Yeah.
But that's what nature give us.
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together. Every species have its niche. Every species have a role to play, and that applies to human world.
Yeah. We probably haven't been playing our role very
Very
fairly or very well. Yeah. Didn't get the directions right. So you're obviously a mover and shaker, but surely you've got an amazing support system. Who do you lean on when you need help, when times are tough?
Many
people.
I have been very lucky and very fortunate to be surrounded by, people who trusted me, who believed in me, who supported me, who be the pillar for me when I crumble.
Which we all do.
Which we all do. And it is, from a very supportive parents who trusted me when I said I wanted to study biology, in a family where everyone has to either be a medical doctor or an engineer. They said, sure, pursue a degree in biology, why not?
Why not?
And that's the first trust that initially I violated a bit because I didn't do well in school.
Yeah.
But they continued to trust me, trust that I could get better. Teachers who trusted me and continue to coach me even when I don't do well at school. Friends who listened to me and trusted my ambition instead of ridiculing me when I was telling them what I plan to do.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a big one.
Mentors.
Yeah.
I had a colleague and a friend when I was doing my master's, and he's a lot older, and he used to teach Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu, of all things. And he once told me that, to all of your students, no matter how good they are, always tell them that they could be better. And that's what he was telling me. You could be better. And somehow it pushed me to always be better.
It's a big concept, isn't it? Being better. If people are watching now, listening, how can they help you? How can they get involved? Can we plug some website, plug an initiative?
Sure.
I'm sure there's people that are inspired by you and would love to figure out a way to be involved.
Yeah. I think the first pathway to help me in the work that I do would be I would encourage everyone to find their passion, to find their love, where their heart is for the environment, find the landscape that they care about, find the animals that they care about, or the people that they care about. And second, our work is available on social media through at @haka_Sumatra.
Okay, at @haka_Sumatra.
And our website is haka.or.id.
Okay. We'll put those details up.
Yes,
Yep.
There'll be email you can contact if you want to volunteer or engage with us, or you could also push the button on donation if that's what you like to do. You could also talk about our work and find ways of collaboration, like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Well, definitely you can add Green School Bali to your support network now.
We would love to. It would be an honor.
Yeah, we might be leaning on you a little bit too. I've got a question. I don't know if I've asked anyone else, but when I say or you read Get Lost Education, what do you think? What comes to mind?
I think it's something that more of us need to do, because I have been one of those rebellious kids who rejected the idea of formal traditional education, but my father, bless him, practically wrangled me to never stop schooling. There's a tradition at home that each of the kids are expected to earn a master's degree at least. a PhD is
Yeah.
ideal. So no matter how much I hated it, I sort of go through the process. But for me, as it turned out, the the schooling system, when it was so rigid, when it was emphasized a lot on discipline, is exactly the place where I fail. But once school become a choice, once education become an opportunity and a privilege, then it's much easier to learn, to absorb, and to be creative, and to find that these things are important. I almost got dropped out from
So
uni
you sort of had to get lost
a few
to
times,
find yourself in a little way.
practically,
Yeah.
practically. And to find that this is, to be able to earn education and study is actually a privilege.
A privilege. Yeah. All right. I'd like to end the podcast by asking you to complete this sentence. The world would be a better place if...
The world would be a better place if it's inclusive of everyone, animals and human and plants as well. The world would be a better place if we value each other and our environment and our ecosystems as much as we value ourselves and our advancement.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Any messages you want to give? One last message to kids particularly. We're at school here.
If it's the last message for the Green School kids, the Green School kids are probably some of the most privileged children around that I have met. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. With your privilege, there's a lot that you can do. With your privilege, there's a lot that you can change. Let's just say your privilege gives you a few steps ahead for everybody. And it is up to you if you want to use that privilege to make the world a better place.
Amazing. If you had a magic wand, though, and you could just wave it over an environmental problem that's current for Indonesia, what would that one problem be? Would it be reforestation? Would it be, well, you don't want to get rid of palm oil, but you want to change the practice? Or is it, what would be your magic wand if you only had one chance to use a magic wand on making the world a better place? Or Indonesia a better place? Is it animals in extinction? Is it waste?
No,
Is it...
I think the magic wand would be to turn everyone's paradigm in.
Yeah, we're back to the paradigm.
Yeah, seeing the ecosystem, it really is.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. I see the problems that we're facing are all part of a big system of problems, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that it's definitely how we teach about sustainable futures here at Green School is definitely in a holistic way, where it does have connections with societies and economies and even the personal well-being. I totally agree. We spoke before this a little bit over a coffee and spoke about not just the lack of connection with humans, but the concept that the humans have been disconnected so far from nature, and all of these problems are built up. We can't solve them one by one. It's a paradigm shift. It is a mindset shift that we need. We can definitely get the rubbish off the street. In Shibang, in here, we can take the rubbish off the street, but the oceans will still keep warming up, and we will keep overfishing them, and they will rise and the coral will die. The problems are bigger than just one isolated problem. And to solve them, I do totally agree with you that it's a mindset shift.
And that is why it takes all of us.
I think it's sort of like you, that was like, if you had one wish, what would it be? And you've just wished for 1,000 wishes.
That's what I do best.
That's great. It's an absolute pleasure talking with you today. You're inspiring and motivating. Your work in conservation, your work with women, your work is definitely something that we want to stay connected with at Green School Bali, and it's a pleasure to talk to you and to get inside that hard-ass woman that looks like she's been beaten up, but it was a motorbike accident. and learn a little bit about what it's like to be a frontline changemaker. And I've really appreciated the way that you sort of reset us on maybe not these micro moments of change, but the need for a bigger mindset shift and a cultural paradigm shift that we need. And thank you very much for talking to me today.
Thank you very much. I hope your audience don't get too freaked out when they see this clip.
No, they won't get freaked out. Thank you, Farwiza, for your work in conservation and for making a difference. And also thank you for inspiring us into taking action, joining forces to make this planet a better place.